Well, hello there, good people. Hi, I'm Jason with Greencatcher Agroforestry. I'm glad you could join me out here in the garden today. I'm standing in between our 8-foot tall trellises where we're growing our tomatoes. These are mortgage tomatoes, a beefsteak tomato, an indeterminate, prolifically producing tomato, and some of them are starting to take off now that we're finally getting some heat with this cold weather we've been having. Some of them are struggling, and of course, part of the struggle involves a little bit of weed pressure. So let's take the camera down here and show you what's going on. So down here, this is one of our sweet basil plants growing here. I've gotten the weeds removed from it, but right here next to it, if we move the camera over a little bit, you can see another tomato plant that's buried in the grass. But what I want to do is show you what's going on beneath the grass. So we're going to zoom in here and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm talking about when I pull these weeds up. Let me get in tight. You're not going to want to miss it. Hopefully we're going to zoom in tight enough that you can see when the weeds come up. All right, here we go. I'm going to get back here. There's my tomato plant. Here's a clump of weeds. Right there, I'm going to grab a big clump of weeds, pull them up, and give a little shake. All right, now we see this nice, rich, dark soil that's been produced. Does that look good? I want you to keep a close eye at the surface of the ground whenever I pull the weeds up. Take a good look at the soil surface. And there's one right there. Oh, you're trying to get away. One right there. There you are. Here's one. Big, healthy earthworm. And this soil is just full of it. We've probably got about anywhere from 5 to 10 per square foot of these really large, well, there's another one right there trying to escape. Really large, healthy earthworms. You see two of them there. And they are the reason that we have this really, really nice, healthy soil. This is almost all worm castings. So we started out last year with a layer of wood chips. Now they're going ahead and burrowing their way down into the soil. They don't like the light. They're going to try to get out of the light. Okay, so we started out last year with the contractor's paper followed by a layer of wood chips, anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of wood chips. And then over the course of the year, we tried growing crops in it. They turned out, as you could probably expect from the first year of a wood chip garden, not fantastic, but okay. But now, a year's gone by, the fungus has come in, it started to work on breaking down the wood chips, the earthworms have come in, they've started eating the dead fungus as it completes its life cycle, and now all of that was formerly wood chips has been converted into worm castings. So I am not growing in wood chips, guys. I'm growing in worm castings. And I gotta tell you, this is some of the best soil I have seen in a long time. Let's have another look. So I'm still working on pulling my weeds here. So now that we get the weed pressure off of this tomato plant, it should grow really well. There's one of the fungi that's busily working at breaking down the soil. Of course, whenever it's done with its life cycle, the worms come in and they eat the remains of the fungi, and that's completing the food web, making this really nice, rich soil for us. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stack my weeds. You can see all the little fungal mycelia around the roots of these grass. Even grass can benefit from mycorrhiza. All right, so now that we've got this here, these weeds are going to decompose in place. They're going to feed the worms, and that will feed the tomato, and it should grow up nice and big. Keeping on with the weeding here. That's a lamb's quarters. Ordinarily, I might let this grow and harvest the salad greens from it, but I don't want it here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. Unfortunately, it's got to go. Okay, so we got a borage plant here. My alternation was in between the tomato plants. We had basil and borage and pepper plants. And that was a basil. So here's a borage. Next one over After the next tomato will be a pepper plant. And we just keep on with that rotation so that we don't have exactly the same thing over and over and over again. This will help confuse the pests. And I'm just going to take a couple leaves off the bottom of this board here because it doesn't need those. Go ahead and pull our weeds like so. And that is this little bit here. It looks like a little tiny white egg. That is the little cup that the stinkhorn mushroom, lantern stinkhorn mushroom, comes up out of. It's a saprophytic fungus. It just decomposes organic material, dead wood, basically. They say that this part here is edible, but it doesn't taste all that great, so I'm not going to try it. I'm not that adventurous. I'm just happy that it's breaking down the wood for me and making good quality soil. All right, put our weeds back around the bottom. There we go, and that can feed the plant. So we get our weeds out, feed the plant. Get our weeds out, feed the plant. Of course, we're not exactly feeding the plant directly. What we're doing is we're getting our weeds out, letting the weeds decompose, feed the worms, and then the worm manure feeds the plant. So I am using manure in the garden. Oh, this piece of twine. I am using manure in the garden. It just happens to be worm manure, and I'm making it right on the spot instead of having to import it. All right. Here goes another earthworm trying to escape. As I'm pulling up the weeds, they're like, no, we must hide. We don't like the sunlight. But here we go. Have some weeds. You can eat the weeds. As the weeds decompose, that's when the earthworms eat them. They don't eat them as blades of grass. The weeds have to decompose. They have to break down and start to rot. And then the earthworms can eat that. The mouth parts on an earthworm is too small to just eat a blade of grass. So you have to let some primary decay happen first, and then the macro organisms, earthworms and other bugs that live in the soil that are not harmful to your plants can move in and take care of the rest of the operation. All right, another little tomato plant here. Not many weeds that I can feed you with. We'll pull up some, pinch off those lower limbs so you don't get a early blight. Early blight, actually, in a wood chip garden, not much of a problem. It can happen, but it's not common. And it's not that there's not plenty of fungus available. There is plenty of fungus available. It's just that the fungus that's responsible for early blight is a soil fungus, and it's not one that works on decomposing wood chips. So you have wood chips down as a mulch. Water hits those, spores splash up from that, but it's not the kind of spores that's going to cause a problem for your tomatoes. Because most of the fungus that we've got here in the wood chips are saprophytic. Only feeds on dead material. So it would only attack your tomato plant if your tomato plant was already dead. So, yeah, nothing to worry about. A lot of fungi are like that, incidentally. You see fungus growing in your garden, don't worry about it. You don't have to eradicate it. You don't have to do anything, because most of it that you're going to see, especially if you're using wood chips, most of it you're going to see is only there to help decompose dead organic material, which means it's your friend, and it's trying to help you have a better garden and better soil. So the best thing you can do is stay out of its way and just let it produce for you. It wants to. So these nodules here on the roots are caused by rhizobium bacteria interacting with the leguminous plant. They're pulling nitrogen from the air and fixing them in the nodules on the roots. So all of that nitrogen there, now available to the tomato down there. And of course, if I mulch with this plant, all the nitrogen in the leaves, as the plant decomposes, will be released back to the tomato, making a nice, healthy tomato plant. As long as I get those lower branches pinched off and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm going to mulch around here with our bean plant. So, beans, peas, other legumes grown in conjunction with, here's a pro tip for you. You can plant some of these and grow them in conjunction with your other vegetables and plant them deliberately, so you can cut them down and destroy them and use them as fertilizer as the season goes on, because that's what they do. They make their own fertilizer. This one I'm just going to let grow up right there, and if we need to chop it and drop it later, we can chop it and drop it. But I'd like to get some more of those black beans out of it. So here we have our beanstalk. 8 miles high.